Here is this really beautiful, gorgeous bracelet. And with working with metalsmithing or jewelry making or even resin jewelry, you wouldn't really think to use scan and cut, but I'm going to share with you today a couple tips and tricks with being able to get just the perfect size background for your bezels, as well as creating little custom embellishments, even as small as like a 1/4 inch for these tiny little bezels. To start our bracelet, what we're going to do is use scan and cut to create a template to cut different materials out of the size of each of the openings. The easiest way to do this is to use your bezel here as a stamp to get the exact size that you need. And I'm just using pigment ink because it's nice and dark. And then I can easily stamp it on a piece of white paper. And so it's there, it's really light. I'm just going to outline it with a marker to make sure that the machine can read it nice and easily. Now I have the shape that I just outlined on my mat. I'm going to scan it in and create a scan to cut file from it. So now that I have my design scanned in, I am simply going to take just the sizing down so that the scan size is just the shape that I need. I'll hit save. I'm going to save it to my machine. And OK. I don't need the shape to be exact. If I need to manipulate it, I can always do that in the machine. Or if for some reason it's my hand drawing was messy, I can always just find a square inside of the basic shapes and size it down. So that's the nice thing about having a scanner built in, is that I can take the machine and let it do all the thinking for me. It can calculate just what sizing I need for my bezel settings to be. So it really does make it nice and easy to be able to now have that to pull up and use it on my screen when I'm sizing what I want to cut out, whether it's fabric or paper, but at least now I know the exact size. Okay, I'm going into my saved data, pulling up that last image there. And let's go into edit. I just want to get a little bit closer. Okay. And yeah, so that looks perfect. So I've ran a couple of test cuts to make sure that my material settings were correct for both my blade and my internal, and also just to make sure that the sizing was right. The sizing, as I mentioned earlier, that you would want to bring down your size a little bit. Actually, with this material and with the way that the machine scanned in the image that I used, I actually had to go up a couple sizes. So just keep that in mind. Play around with your material, play around with your settings to see exactly what works for you. Before we start cutting, I do want to state that my blade depth is at a 7, and my internal settings are a cut pressure of 5 with a cut speed of 1. Now I have all the shapes that I need to cut, and I have my linen. It's already on my fabric support sheet here, and I can hit cut. Now what we're going to do is cut really tiny little kind of confetti-like embellishments so that we can layer within our bezels once we set with resin. I have here, I'm going to cut out some hearts, and I have here just some really pretty pattern paper. Now this is premium pattern paper. It's really nice thick cardstock, so you'll the settings for this, what I've used here is a blade depth of 3 and a cut pressure of 3 and a cut speed of 1. For smaller items or more delicate kind of fabrics or surfaces, I really like using a slower cut speed just because there really is no rush and it really does help to get that nice crisp cut. All right, I already have 10 hearts set and I've scanned in my background so I can see exactly where I'm gonna cut. I'll hit OK, cut, and start. And for this, I'm just using the low tack mat. It works great for cutting scrapbook papers. I will pick up my paper and you'll see all of those beautiful hearts here. And again, this is the low tack mat. So this mat has really low tack. I like using this for my pattern papers, for tissue paper, vinyl. It's still a really nice mat to be able to use to not have your paper or your surfaces get stuck to your standard mat. But look how small these little itty bitty hearts are. They're 1/4 of an inch. And I just wanted to make some sort of, just really nice, cute little embellishment to be able to put within our bracelet. To start off, I have my resin. And I've gone ahead and mixed it according to the directions, and I'm using ice resin here, and this takes about 2 minutes for me to mix it, just the 2 parts together. And what I'm going to do is first take little dabs and place it in the center of each of my bezels so that my linen won't move as I'm filling it with different items and with the resin. It acts similar to glue, just kind of holding all the pieces in there. Now that I have my linen set in my bezels, I have just a mixture of different items. I have the hearts that I cut out. I also have different like faux pearl, flat back pearls. And then one thing that I've actually done too is taken some bead caps and flatten them so that I can use them as embellishments in this mixed metal design. So again, just going into some old jewelry or any kind of beading or craft items, sequin, glitter. You can see here I have some broken mirror pieces. I just really love the way these look. They're just really nice and it just adds character. So now what we're going to do is again just gluing each piece down with my resin, and now I'm just going to start designing. That I have my embellishments and all of my, like I said, broken glass, old jewelry, flattened bead caps, just a lot of different things that I had lying around. My last thing that I want to do is take this beautiful button. Now I've cut off the shank on the back, so that it'll fit nicely. It will stick up out of the piece, but that's the nice thing about the resin. The resin will hold it in nicely. So for my last bezel here, I'm just going to add in a little bit more and then stick it right inside. So now what I'm going to do is let this dry 6 to 12 hours. I usually like letting it dry overnight. That way it's completely nice and hardened. Ice resin will also self-level. All the bubbles will come out on their own. So that's the nice thing about this. I don't have to sit and watch and make sure that I take care of any bubbles or issues or like that. And then afterwards, what I can do is sand off any extra resin that might have kind of fallen off the edge, or kind of just make sure that all of the bezels are nice and even. I did dome them so that everything is kind of encased, but I also really like how some of the features, like this piece here and some of the pearls, where they actually do stick up out of the resin, so it just gives a nice texture. So yeah, there we go. This is our kind of a funky, vintagey resin bracelet using Scan and Cut to cut out our linen as well as some heart embellishments and just old broken jewelry and findings that I've had around the house.